Hello. My name is Franklin Howard. Today I'll be presenting to you on the topic penetration testing and risk management, Lab 5, challenging your hacking skills. Today is January 14, 2025. For introduction, finding security holes in a network and suggest fix. Automated vulnerability scanners are crucial and demonstrated in this lab. I will enumerate network access vulnerabilities and exploit metasploitable tools with tools like Nmap, Necto, OASEPT, and Nessus. By combining classroom instructions with practical exercises, this lab will provide students with the tools they need to successfully handle cybersecurity threats in a real-world environment. The scope of this lab, the lab primary objective is to identify and analyze security vulnerability within a control network environment. That's why we're going to use our virtual environment. Automated vulnerability scanners and manual penetration testing tools will be used. Students will practice enumerating network, discovering vulnerabilities, and exploiting weakness to understand common security flaws and their solutions. Reminder, this presentation will avoid creating a state of panic. Planning, organizing, and performing penetration testing on Metasploitable tool VM. For the planning stage, we have to define the scope. We have to set objective. Defining the scope will allow us to specify the services, the port, and the vulnerability that we are going to test for. The objective is to establish goals and ascertain security or simulating attack. Right? Obtain permissions, secure approval, to do your penetration testing, you have to gather tools. The tools that we're going to use in this lab was previously listed as Nmap, Nessus, Metasploit, Necto, OAZEP, and then Kali Linux. So organizing what we're going to do, we have to prepare the environment that will enable us to isolate the VM in a secure lab network and set up a host machine with necessary software. We have to create a time, right? Develop a step-by-step procedure or processes for each of the different stages. We have to also document the procedures, right? So the performance, right? When you're doing the performance, you have to what? Recognize. What are we going to look for? We identify the open ports, the services, the OS details using tools like Nmap analysis, service banner, right? We also do vulnerability scanning to detect and know the different vulnerabilities. So we can use our tools, all of those tools listed, but I decide to emphasize on Nessus because it helps to provide more information. Exploitation simulate attack using the metasploitable framework, right? Put exploitation, we have to take in consideration of that. We also got to do reporting. What did we discover? We got to do compliance, a list of vulnerabilities. We got to and then we have to do recommendations of the difference of discovery. How can we fix those discovery? Why do we need penetration testing for businesses? In order to prevent security vulnerabilities from being exploited by bad actors, businesses can proactively detect and fix them through penetration testing. It verifies that security controls are working as intended, provide useful information like shutting up defenses and check that everything is in line with the business regulations. It also increases overall resilience by encouraging a culture of consistent cybersecurity development. As it was previously stated, in this lab we're going to be using Metasploitable 2, as you can see in here in the screenshot, and we also got our Kali box running. So on these two machines we're going to use, what is Metasploitable, right? We have to take, it's an open source, right, operating system, as well as Kali. So these are the two machines that we're going to be using, and these machines are in a virtual environment. Nmap scan report. So the screenshot below shows Nmap scan being run, right? And as we stated, you have to run the Nmap with a target IP address. So in order to discover all of the different devices that is within your network, you have to run the 10.0 to 2.0 slash 24. Slash 24 will narrow your scanning to the minimum of devices on your network. So we were able to scan and we discover Metasploitable 2, and we also discovered different ports that were open. Some of the ports that were open, we got port 80 open. We also got port 80 is for web server vulnerability, right? uh, Hacker use to do SQL injection on your system. We also got MySQL port was open 3306. It shows default weaknesses of credentials on your network. SSH port were open, Telnet open. We also have SMB and NetBIOS vulnerabilities. These are vulnerabilities that you don't want, all right? Exploitable with tools like internal blue. So these ports, when these ports are open, there are a lot of different tools that can be used to exploit it. So the scan was successful. We use our nmap dash p dash having dash a, and then we set the host. So this is Nectar tools being installed, right? You have to install the Nectar tools on your Kali box, and then as you can see in the screenshot, we run the scan. We have to set the host, right? That is our target our machine. So by doing that, you run the command Nectar having h, that is for host, and then you set the target IP address. So we were able to discover all of these vulnerabilities using Nectar. So what is Nectar? Nectar is an open source web server or scanner designed to identify vulnerabilities, misconfiguration, and security risks in a server. Very good tools. Run for it. So, as it was stated, this is Nectar. These are all of the different scan that was done. We were able to discuss a few of them. We discussed the cross-site scripting, which is the XSS. So, what is it used for? An adversary that exploits a security host known as cross-site scripting. It is Hackers use it to insert harmful script within a legitimate website and or web applications to exploit it. So we also have our online security flow known as cross-site request forgery, right? It allows hackers to deceive an authenticated user, right? An authenticated user into doing malicious actions on a web application, which is very, very much wrong. You know, acting as if you are somebody who you are not. OASM. So this is another effective tools. It's as a graphical user interface tools. So for web application vulnerability scanning and penetration testing, these tools allow us to discover a lot of different vulnerabilities within. But on the next slide, we will further discover that to configure these tools, you have to set up the target IP address and then launch the attack. So in this screenshot, you see we were able to do a little bit of interpretation for some of the vulnerabilities that we were able to discover running OASEP. You see SQL injection. Again, we talk about it. It's a web application of vulnerability where attackers manipulate SQL query to access or manipulate the database, right? Then we also look at how does it work, right? Inject malicious SQL codes into input field or URLs, right? Then we look at content security policies, CSP. A handler is set to full. You have to set the handle, right? If you don't do that, website become more vulnerable to various type of attack. So you have to set up the handles. And if you look at our scan here, you will find all of these vulnerabilities open, and all of them have different purposes and reasons. So Nessus. So this is another tools, effective graphical user interface tools that were installed. And you see I set my tools to Howard Metasploitable 2, and then I set the target IP address, and I was able to launch it. This is how we start up this entire process with using Nessus to exploit our system. So these are the results that we got from Nessus scan on Metasploitable. Metasploitable IP address is set as 10.0 to 2.7. So we can see over here we got critical 3, we got high 4, we got medium 16, and then 3 for low. We also got 72 for information. So we had a successful scan. These are some of the results for high. We got PHP right? So to we after you discover this, you can also see that we also have solutions. So one of the solution was to upgrade the PHP my admin to 3.1.3.2, right? This will enable us to patch all of those different vulnerabilities with in our system. So we don't have it after I did patch these vulnerabilities. Yeah, 15 vulnerabilities that Narcissus and other tools were able to discover listed in an orderly manner, right? So we will discuss few of them because of time factor. HTML or preprocessor is open for short. We call it PHP. What does it has to do with that with us? Simply put, it is a scripting language that runs on server and allow developer to build dynamic web pages. Can you imagine this being open? What happens to the system? A lot of intrusion, right? We also have how can it be used? Using SQL injection. A hacker can use SQL injection, filling to validate input and managing sections poorly are all examples of insecure code practices. So the list go on website. Software like Apache is vulnerable. Can you imagine that? Information or internet information server is vulnerable. These are things that you don't want. What happens when these things are vulnerable? We got running. These things are vulnerable because you don't patch your system. You're running on patched servers. So the server exposed, the software are all exposed to risks. Data exposures, right? You exposing your data all of the time. Server related sensitive information may be exposed during the process of exposing your data, giving you access to wrong persons. These things are not good for your system. So we got 15 vulnerabilities that we were able to discover through our scanning processes. Hacking into Metasploitable tool. These are the steps that we use along the way. You're going to discover that the screenshot shows how the command that was run. That is MSF console command that was run to enable us to have Metasploit access, right? And then it shows the version of Metasploit that we were running. That is the v6.4.18-depth, right? That's the version. So in the screenshot too, you will see this is how we were able to see our version that is running on our Metasploitable tool, right? So in order to do that, we had to set our arrow host and then indicate the target IP address. So the target IP address in this case is 10.2.0.7 for Metasploitable 2. So you can see that it is running Samba 2.0.20 the uh, so that's the version right there, right in there. You can see that, and then we were able to download the file, the Samba version file, from by using our grep command, right? So that file will enable us to remotely log into our Metasploitable to log in as a root account. So after successfully downloading our exploit file for Samba and the version that was discovered, we discovered that we had just one user, right? And then if you can see here, you see user exploit /multi /samba user map and then underscore script. That script we were able to run it, and then these are the results that we see, and then in order for us to launch that script, we have to set our host to our target, right? In this case, Metasploitable 2 is our target running on the IP address 10.0.2.7, and then once we hit it, we press enter, our host was set. We just hit run, right? Command run, and then we have our result. So as you can see in the screenshot that we successfully hacked Metasploitable 2, and we ran our command who am I. Who am I will enable us to tell our current directory. So you can see who am I. I'm in this in Metasploitable 2 as a root. I was able to list run my list command, and then you see all of the different um directory that is in our WMI folder, right? So the instruction says we should hack Metasploitable 2, and then we successfully did that. We have to create an account. The account name is in my last name, Howard, as you can see indicated here, Howard. And then we also set up a new password that is ABC123 display right here. And then you see that it says password update successfully. So this shows that we successfully hacked Metasploitable 2, and I am so glad that I was able to do it. So risk assessment and gap analysis. Findings from part B scan, right? So all of the scans that we did, we were able to find vulnerabilities that we identified. We identified open ports, outdated software, weak authentications, misconfiguration of services. What was the severity level? We saw critical, we saw high, we saw medium, we saw low base on the CVSS code and impacts, right? So on the right hand side, you see all of the different vulnerabilities that we discovered on the different screenshot, and then we see what's the graph analysis, right? Existing control versus vulnerability. We got to compare those two. So we saw missing encryptions, we saw outdated patches, or insufficient monitoring, right? If you're not sufficiently monitoring your devices, you see you have all of these vulnerabilities. Were they in compliance? We saw misalignments with compliance with framework. That is the NIST, the CSF. We saw ISO 2700 also in misalignments. Proposed countermeasures and mitigation strategy. Technical countermeasure. Patch management, network segmentation, strong access control, and IDS/IPS deployment. Administrative countermeasure, which is security awareness training, policy updates, incident response planning. Expected result. It will reduce vulnerabilities in attack surface, enhance threats detections and prevention, better alignment with cybersecurity standards, mitigation strategy, prioritize critical issues, use automated tools, and conduct periodic testing. So the screenshot shows that I was successfully able to log into Metasploitable as administrator, and I made some major changes that helped improve my system. And as you can see over here, we got different scans that was conducted after I updated my software, that is the Metasploitable applications. We also successfully updated the SQL file that was given a vulnerability to SQL for SQL injection and other PHP services that was vulnerable. So I was also able to block port 80 as well as telnet ports using firewall that allowed me to block port 80. So there was a lot of different proxies that I was able to implement in this process. Updating the application helped me resolve a lot more of issues. So let us keep in mind that updates and patches are one of the key factors that can help us to improve our system. Yeah, some reasons for implementing changes. So let's look at key driver for changes: cost. So choose cost-effective solution like patching and policy updates to minimize expensive. When you update, you minimize expensive. Experience. You have to focus on changes that could be implemented quickly, such as disabling unused services or enforce access control. So criticality, prioritize addressing high severity vulnerabilities with most sufficient impact on security. The vulnerability addressed, we were able to address outdated software, unpatched system, weak authentication mechanism, and misconfiguration service. We were also able to address the situation with open port exposing critical that exposes critical services to potential exploitation. So result and lesson learned. These are the result and lesson learned. Expectation versus actual. So expected improved system security, reduce vulnerabilities, and compliance with standards. The actual most objectives were met, but certain configurations require additional adjustment or cause unintended disruption. Lesson learned. The improvement of thorough testing before deployment to prevent service interruptions is necessary. The value of continuous monitoring to identify new threats and validate changes can help our system improve. Effective communications with stakeholders is crucial to align technical efforts and organization goals. Conclusion. Finally, the need for proactive cybersecurity measures is brought to light by the systematic approach to designing, performing, and addressing penetration testing on the metasploitable tool. It is necessary for improvement of the system security. It also emphasizes at every stage for conducting thorough scan to detect vulnerability and implementing targeted and cost-effective solutions to mitigate threats. Organization can acquire useful insight into their security posture, increase defenses, and decrease threats by implementing changes based on a thorough risk assessment. By doing so, we may strengthen our technical defenses and encourage a mindset of readiness and flexibility to deal with new cybersecurity danger. So, thanks for listening. Again, my name is Franklin Howard.